You know what? Why don't we start off with the hometown Bears? Of course, let's start off with our losses. We lose Leonard Floyd, Prince Amukamara, Trey Burton, Taylor Gabriel, and Kyle Long. Most of these guys were not overly productive this past season. Obviously, Prince Amukamara started for us for a while. However, he has dealt with constant injuries in his term with Chicago. Same with Kyle Long. Kyle Long, I could even argue that he wasn't playing that well when he was healthy. But in free agency, we go and we add Robert Quinn, huge signing, Jimmy Graham. Was not a fan of that one, I have to say. Demetrius Harris, Jermaine Ifedi to play guard, Ted Ginn Jr., Tashawn Gibson, and of course Nick Foles. And then in the draft, we go over to draft Cole Kmet, Jaylon Johnson, Travis Gibson, and then Kindle Vildor and Darnell Mooney. So Nick, why don't you go ahead and start us off with how you grade this Bears offseason?
Yeah, so when I was looking at just what the Bears had done, what they lost, and just accounting everything, you have to think that the Bears did get better here. They upgrade at some positions. The one that I think was a head scratcher for everybody, especially when you look at the money, was a Jimmy Graham signing. Just the money associated to a player that was kind of on the downward trend, right? But you look at the tight end situation for the Bears, it honestly is probably an upgrade just because of how bad the play was there. So I think what I ended up when we did just a recap of the offseason and what the Bears did, I think I gave it a B plus just because there are some factors that you got to obviously equate here. It's like with Nick Foles, does he actually win this quarterback competition? Is he going to be the guy that they hope he can be? And then you look at like a Leonard Floyd and Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn's an upgrade. Khalil Mack finally gets his counterpart that will maybe take away some of those double teams and let him play to the best of his ability. And Akeem Hicks in that situation, that front seven is a pretty nasty one. And then with Prince Amukamara leaving, and you get Jaylon Johnson there, I think what we saw from Prince in the first year or two, was decent. He was a capable starter, but last season you saw the downward trend again just because of old age and just not being able to stay in the best man-to-man coverage. But Jaylon Johnson, I think, is going to be a stud for this Bears defense. Just put that pass rush with him and then learning from veterans around him. I think it's going to be a seamless transition from him. And then you look at finally the safety position into Tashawn Gibson, Clint Dix. I think with Tashawn Gibson, it's going to allow Eddie Jackson to play more of that single high safety and just being able to play that robber position as well, just to pick off some of those things that are coming underneath from obviously route combination and things of that nature. So I give it a B plus. The Bears got better. We just got to see how this all really comes together. And I think the big one too, just in coaching, is you got to see what Juan Castillo can actually do with this offensive line. Because the only addition really to that offensive line is Jermaine Ifedi. So this is the same group that really underperformed in 2019, and the Bears are putting a lot on Juan Castillo to really right this ship and to hopefully get this running game, this offensive line correct for 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go ahead and start giving my grades now, and then Reese, we'll toss over back to you. But for my offseason grade, I did give us a B+. I was a huge fan specifically of the Jaylon Johnson signing, and he was always someone that consistently stuck out and even played through injuries at a very high level. Many would say that he might have went top 15 this past year if he wasn't playing through injuries, because that's just how good he played. When it goes back to the Jimmy Graham signing, I was very aggravated with the Bears when I saw that was their first free agency move. The money, it was not worth it. I have hope that maybe Nagy can get something out of him. But what I have to say, and what I like what the Bears did this offseason, is that as a unit, the tight end unit is very overpaid, and we put a lot of value into it, but it's a good unit. All together, Jimmy Graham, if he was the sole solution here, I'd be very mad. But having him, obviously with Cole Kmet and then Demetrius Harris and some of the guys that we had in the past, that's not a bad unit. And it's going to be a huge upgrade. And even if Jimmy Graham only gives us what he gave us last season, that's an upgrade for the Bears. That's a clear upgrade for the Bears. So, I like it. Obviously, you said Juan Castillo. I'm a big fan of his offensive line coaching. I think that he runs a lot more of a modernized offensive line system rather than what Harry Highstand did, which is kind of a more traditional, mainly meant for like ground and pound, back what he did with Notre Dame and everything. Obviously, still a good head coach, but I can see why the Bears decided to move on. I'm also obviously very excited for Dave Filippo in the quarterback's room. I think that Nick Foles, I hope that we can get some sort of competent quarterback play. I'm confident we can get some sort of competent quarterback play. I think we have a ton of players returning from injury, and again, as you were saying, defense is looking to be stellar this year with the return of Akeem Hicks. Eddie Goldman isn't going to be as injured. Obviously, we just have an abundance of riches there. I'm very excited. I think that the Bears are going to improve. I'm unsure to what degree, though.
Yeah, I think, I have a pretty similar outlook to both of y'all. I give them a solid B. The way I see it is that, where the Bears lost some of these key players, they improved. They got upgrades at those positions. We talked Prince Amukamara for Jaylon Johnson. I think that's an upgrade. I think Trey Burton for the Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham package. Take the Jimmy Graham contract as you will. Not the best thing in the world. But if we're looking purely at what performances we're going to get out of them, I think that tandem is an upgrade over what we had with Trey Burton and what our tight end cast was in the past year. And I think Leonard Floyd for Robert Quinn, while you are losing someone that was younger, maybe had a little bit more potential, but, we didn't really get to see the best part. We didn't get to see too much consistency as play with injuries with Leonard Floyd. I think Robert Quinn is an upgrade. We are getting someone finally alongside Khalil Mack, that, as you brought up, where, it finally gives or brings up the opportunity for Khalil Mack to be free from some double teams. So I think this defense is going to be excellent. The offensive line is still definitely worrisome. Jermaine Ifedi, the only one being brought in. We'll have to see what Juan Castillo does. I think that's the narrative that you two have both kind of pounded in so far. And also, I think the reason why I went with a B instead of a B+ is because, as I brought up on multiple podcasts beforehand, I think, even not picking a quarterback late or picking up some kind of younger quarterback prospect in undrafted free agency or something like that, I think that just makes me have a little bit more of a negative outlook, because I'll feel really confident with the Bears offseason when they're finally doing some real quarterback development. And I know that Nick Foles, has been there, hopefully can teach Trubisky a little bit, but we'll just have to see how it works out.
Yeah, and I think one final point I want to make when it comes to Jermaine Ifedi is I'm very excited to see him switch back over to guard. When he was coming out of Texas A&M, he played mostly guard, and that's where I kind of thought he would play. But when the Seattle Seahawks obviously drafted him, they were kind of operating their system based on a need basis, and so he went and popped out to tackle. Obviously a very athletic player, but tackle clearly a more technical, more advanced position. It takes a lot more to handle guys on the edge, especially when some of the best athletes in the NFL are on the edge. So I have high hopes for him, but we still are missing that consistent starter. And Reese and I have touched on in the past the possibility of signing Larry Warford. I think that would still be a great move, and have Jermaine Ifedi kind of be our primary rotational backup offensive lineman.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.